for this going forward, and being that he is on a wheel, sometimes on a controller, sometimes. What are your thoughts on that real quick while we talk here? Is controller, wheel, would you ever race on a controller?
When I first started getting into iRacing about, I would say 3-4 years ago, I tried to use a controller for the first about 2 to 3 weeks, and I was only brave enough to try super speedways with a controller. I felt like, hey, I needed the most space, and I was fumbling around, almost wrecking everyone. I find it slightly easier to try to race with a wheel. I feel a lot more controlled, but some people, they grew up racing with controllers on like their Xbox or PlayStation when they were growing up, and so when they made that transition to iRacing, it just felt a lot smoother for some drivers. And I think for Shane, he's been doing this for 12 odd, maybe more than that, years racing with a controller, so he feels very comfortable with it. But we have kind of tricked Shane into getting into a wheel because it feels like a wheel does give you a lot more control and overall will make you faster on iRacing and any other platform you're on. So overall we're just trying to make Shane better to hopefully get him to try to race for Road to Pro.
Yeah, definitely, for a lot of these guys, like you just mentioned, Road to Pro is kind of the ultimate goal, I should say, getting in to Road to Pro and then making your way into that Pro Series, which, of course, the eNASCAR Coca-Cola Series, which, I'm very familiar with. You are, Justin Prince, going to be familiar with as well when he is set to go, again, getting all loaded in and into his production chair, or his announcer chair. I'll be in the production chair here tonight, but it's a good series. A lot of great racing goes on it. I expect to see some good racing here tonight. We've already kind of talked about this off air. I really think it's going to be a low caution count here tonight, just because of that. And just to introduce him, we'll get his thoughts on it as Justin is ready to go. So Justin, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Charles. As we get ready to go racing from Iowa Speedway, it's expected to be an interesting race tonight, as talked about, Sam, and because this is a racetrack that brings a lot of great racing, because it's a fan favorite, it's a driver's favorite, with multiple potential grooves, but it's also a track that is bumpy, and also is one where track position is key. It's going to be an intriguing race tonight, Sam.
Yeah, especially with the small field. Only 16 drivers so far loaded in. Qualifying going to start in about a minute. But yeah, the multi-groove aspect of racing is what really makes this track so exciting for myself, just to be a spectator, because there's drivers that love the low line and there's other drivers that like that middle to high lane. And we're going to be seeing it, especially because it's 200 miles, on how the higher lane is going to evolve throughout the night.
Now, for those just tuning in, let's recap how the standings have been so far as we enter this race in the second race of the round of 12. Shane Thieren, as mentioned, already advanced. Trenton Jump is currently tied with Bronson Stafford for the second position. Then 8 points ahead of the cut line is Spencer Hardison. Then you have Braxton Deweese, Tom Bourne, Joshua Altis, and Logan Brakey inside the top 8 at the moment. The drivers outside the cut line, Tower Stooksbury, minus 4 points. Matt Dyer is 5 points behind. Austin Jordan, 6 points behind. Eric Stamp, 9 points behind. So fairly close. Still, the pressure is on for drivers after what was an entertaining 208 laps of Darlington.
Yeah, Darlington was a spectacular race where Shane just kind of pulled away and was never really a threat by anyone else. And I'm excited to see how these drivers are going to be attacking here today. I mean, during practice, it looked like Tom Bourne was one of those guys looking quick until Shane decided to take the top spot. But qualifying about to get underway. But you touched on where the points are right now. I got to say, our top 6 drivers have looked like the top 6 all season long. No one has really been able to touch that of Shane Terrian, Trenton Jump, Bronson Stafford, Spencer Hardison, or Braxton Deweese. Even Tom Bourne. Those 6 drivers have been so dominant and been up front every single race that everyone else below them, with Altis and Brakey being inside of the top 8. I don't know if that's even a safe spot for them to be, just because there's been a lot of drivers that have been having a lot of bad luck, such as Matt Dyer and also Eric Stamp. And also with Logan Brakey, he's just been so consistent. His consistency is why he's in the top 8 currently in points.
Absolutely. Qualifying is now underway as we look at Tanner Johnson, and we already talked a little bit about how this track can drive. How is it like in qualifying to try and hot lap your way around this circuit and get the best time possible?
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of these drivers, it's going to be that second lap once you get the heat finally built up into these machines. Iowa short track, it's 0.88 miles for these drivers, so you got to build up the heat as fast as possible in their warm-up and also on your first lap and really attack this second lap so you have the best time possible. As Tanner Johnson going to be your top driver currently, but he'll be spinning around on his second lap, so he'll be stuck with a 24.234 for his best time.
Towers Tewksbury is now off and away for his qualifying lap. Meanwhile, as well as majority of the field, the only drivers not on track, Shane Tieran, along with Keenan Massey, and Bronson Stafford so far. Fastest time set by Tom Bourne, a 23.351. That is a tenth of a second quicker than Trenton Jump, who just got jumped on the board by Caleb Smith. So very tight in qualifying so far, as we see the 19 machine come across the stripe. 23.332, fairly solid lap.
Yeah, very solid, especially for Tewksbury right now. He's trying to break in, and looking at the points, there's really that small differences of from fourth down to that cut line is a difference of 8 points. And then also for the drivers that are outside, Eric Stamp furthest back in 12th, he's 9 points back. And if this was a larger field, we'd be really saying that's a really small margin that you can come back and possibly beat these guys. But with only 16 drivers on track for today and possibly only 16 to 18 next week, this field doesn't give you a lot of space to really gain those points that you've lost in Darlington last week.
Dyer not able to bump his way up the board in P9 at the moment. Logan Branke, the last driver in qualifying with a 23.8 at the moment. Looking now at Braxton DeWeese, who's trying to set up the time using that top line. That's very important to be able to heat up your tires and wait for your time to be able to go full out for your qualifying attempt, trying to build up that speed on the high line.
Yeah, Braxton, one of the drivers that I love seeing him at short tracks. His willingness to be aggressive has helped this 15 a lot and has hurt him. Still hasn't gotten a win this season, which is probably the most shocking thing. Braxton has been fast almost every single week. He's just waiting to break that win column at some point.
First lap around is a 23.5. That gets him 8th best. We'll see how the second lap now goes for him and what's been a very tightly contested qualifying session here in this race so far. DeWeese now at the bottom in 3 and 4. All the way down to that yellow line this time, carrying speeds of more than 150 miles an hour. The stripe hits the pole, 23.218.
That is a screaming time with the 23.218. I mean, that is faster than what any of the drivers were doing during practice. That is a very quick time for the 15. And I think the biggest question is what happened to Shane Tierran. And it looks like Shane's decided to do what the strategy he's done before when he was racing on a wheel back at the last race of the regular season at Texas. That start in the back, give him himself some space so he has a lot of time throughout this race to get better and possibly be up front.
Bronson Stafford in the Spooky For You machine pulling off the racetrack. 30 seconds to go or so left to go in qualifying. Eric Stamp, Shane Tierran not going to be able to set qualifying times. 14 of the 16 drivers will set times. Overall, your expectations for the race tonight, Sam?
Yeah, if this race goes green, I'm expecting DeWeese to pull out to an early lead, maybe get up to about 2 seconds of a lap, lead over that of Tom Bourne, Bronson Stafford. But for some of these guys that are up front, like Tewksbury and Allie Gray, this is surprising to see them up front. Also for Caleb Smith, you usually don't see these drivers up in the top 5 for qualifying. So I'm interested to see with them being up front, are they able to save their tires for the longer run if we can get a long green run?
Qualifying is now wrapped up, which means it's time to look at your starting grid for tonight's action from iRacing's virtual Iowa Speedway for this 200-lap event. On the pole for tonight, it'll be Braxton DeWeese in row 1 alongside Tom Bourne in your Team 126 Racing starting grid. Towers Tewksbury will start in row 2 alongside Bronson Stafford. Then in row 3, it's Caleb Smith and Alt Lee Gray. Then Trenton Jump will try and jump up from 7th position with Joshua Altus in 8th position. Robert Kenny in 9th. Keenan Massey rounds out your top 10, Sam.
Then in 11th, you're going to have Tanner Johnson and Matt Dyer in row number 6. And then you drop back down to that of Alex Walter and Logan Brakey. Brakey going to be the last of the drivers that decided to qualify, and he's going to need a really good day being that bubble driver on how well he can move up. And then our last row, you've got that of Shane Terrian and Eric Stamp. Shane Terrian's already locked in. Stamp, he's the furthest back. He's going to need a massive day today to help himself out next week when we go to Talladega.
Absolutely. You don't want to let yourself be in the pressure of having to lock yourself in at a super speedway. Now, our track conditions for tonight, 79 degrees is your track temperature for tonight. 77 degrees, your air temp. 2 miles an hour to the north currently, with partly cloudy skies for tonight's action. In sim time just past 9:12 p.m. on May 15th.
Worry about themselves, and with staying smooth and calm, they're also going to have to worry about the potential of lots of wrecks. Iowa, yes, there's multi-grooves, but that also means the later the run goes on, you could be seeing those drivers on the low end start to drift up later in a run, so make sure you aren't out of trouble there. And finally, just stay patient. I think for a lot of the drivers that are in the playoffs, they're going to feel that antsiness early on. Get up as many positions as possible, lead some laps. But if you stay patient, you will be moving forward. So I think those drivers have those 3 keys to worry about. But Justin, it's great to have you in the booth here for this race. Excited for these 200 laps, but for those drivers that are in the back, I'm interested to see how Shane's going to be moving forward, and also for Logan Brakey on how well they can move up and possibly get into the top 10.
Indeed, it's going to be an entertaining race for these drivers for tonight. Braxton DeWeese has shown plenty of talent to drop off. Tonight's action at Iowa Speedway, 200 laps, ready to go at the 0.88 mile facility. Green flag is out. We're underway from Iowa. And Bourne with the better start on the outside line, as DeWeese trying to keep that bottom line. Can't do so. That's going to cost him the lead early.
They're battling up front. Tom Bourne, he is not giving up on the high side, still staying strong, and that's what this multi-groove racing allows for Tom Bourne. Even if he's starting on the high line, DeWeese, he cannot fully pull away just yet.
Yeah, that top line is really good for the corner exits, but of course, the bottom line is better for saving tires here, Samuel, to be able to run against that yellow line, and that's why drivers prefer that. You see now the High Five Racing Machine, DeWeese, trying to now ride in second spot after Bourne set the fastest lap so far in the race.
And now he can finally get down low and
trouble turn
back.
2. Matt Dyer into the wall. Caution is out. Eric Stamp also collected. And we're under yellow. A third driver, Alex Walter, also brought around. And that quickly is your first yellow flag of the evening as we look at your Pulse Poppers instant replay.
Oh boy, this one is an interesting one. You've got multiple factors coming in. You're going to be seeing a blue machine of that of Alex Walter. He'll drop up, but it's going to be a little bit of contact from Logan Brakey and Dyer. It's going to push Dyer up, and Stamp nowhere to go. 2 of the drivers outside of the top 8 who needed good days. That is not how you wanted to start out here at Iowa, especially because there is no fast repairs. That damage you are going to have to repair in pit road.
Let's take an arrow look from on board. This is Eric Stamp, who had nowhere to go in this circumstance. Ends up with some front nose damage because of this.
Going into pit road.
And some of them, I think, potentially for the damage repair. Keep in mind, there are 4 tire sets in the pits for tonight, so you have to be careful. Yes, that's still plenty if you calculate the fuel. 80% fuel limit for tonight. Potential 2-stopper likely for some of these drivers. You still want to be able to save these tires early on, and that's what a majority of the drivers have done, except for Logan Brakey, who is taking a set.
Yeah, taking a set this early is very risky, for sure.
And keep in mind, no fast repairs in this series, so these drivers are going to have to spend several seconds for these damage repairs to be done under the caution. But it's Tom Bourne who is your race leader. Had a great start to this one, Sam, to be able to keep himself side by side off the launch and be able to power his way by Braxton DeWeese.
Yeah, and he was starting in second place on the high side, and now the question is, he made that move cleanly on Braxton. Will he be starting on the outside again, or will he decide to start in the low lane? Because we saw for Braxton, he wasn't able to make that pass cleanly, what gave the 54 the chance to make the pass on the high side. I mean, I know it's early on, but it seems like starting on the high side would be the best place to start.
Absolutely. See how things play out when we get to the restart in the next couple laps or so. Among the drivers who gained positions on those first initial laps, also gained 2 positions to get to 6th. Tanner Johnson gained 2 positions to get to 9th. 2 positions by Logan Brakey despite the pit stop service. Eric Stamp, 2 positions gained with the damage repair. Make that +1 with the 38. Now coming on by him in his race car.
Yeah, I mean, we had Robert County and Shane Terrian. It looked like they just came in for fuel, while everyone else, they were involved in that incident, so taking repairs for themselves, and then also, like you noted, Brakey taking tires on top of getting some damage repair. So for those drivers from 11th on back, setting themselves up to go a little bit further if this race if it can go green. But Iowa is notoriously known for, even short tracks in general, with cautions breeding cautions, and with this being a playoff race, there's so much on the line. Drivers are willing to make those bold moves.
Want to go signal as Bourne and DeWeese 1 and 2, Stooksbury and Stafford 3 and 4. Then Gray and Altis row 3, Jump and Smith row 4, Johnson and Massey row 5 for this restart. All set to go with the iRacing pace car coming off, and already backing up as Bourne. He chose the high side for this restart. Green flag is out, off and away. DeWeese caught sleeping.
Yeah, and a great launch for that of Bronson Stafford running in 4th on the high lane, and he was trying to take off. Still communication as Tom Bourne and Bronson Stafford, former teammates. They're still friends, free agents currently, but they still talk to one another during these races, so might have worked with each other. But Tom Bourne taking off like a rocket ship, and now the battle for 4th is starting to heat up.
Still kept side by side as that 5 machine able to get the pole down the front straightaway. Now, though, has to be able to clear on by that 19 machine, able to keep it side by side. Now pinching across the seams they go and move that 5 up into 4th position.
Yeah, and you're seeing those are playoff drivers by the yellow spoiler splitter, and on the banners it's yellow, indicating that those are your 12 playoff drivers racing at here. And man, it is wild to see the playoff drivers willing to drive, but Smith does graze the outside wall. Got to be careful for that 12. He's known for not being the best at saving tires, and this is going to be a very difficult race for that 12 if he's already brutalizing those tires and it's pushing him up.
Pushing up the racetrack as well, up the road goes Altis, nearly into the door. Bronson Stafford in this fight, as this whole entire gaggle of cars holding each other up. And the more you fight side by side here at Iowa, the more time you lose. Right now, Braxton DeWeese has picked up half a second on these drivers.
Yeah, and DeWeese is loving this. He just wants to continue to pull away. Caleb Smith's going to do a little bit of a crossover move, try to get over and under Stooksbury. But for the 5 of that of Josh Altis, I mean, what a race it's been for him in season. He's a rookie this season in season 3 of the Adrenaline iRacing series. As oh boy, Trenton Jump almost got squeezed on the high lane there. But Altis, for a rookie, he's doing so well. There's 2 rookies that made it into the playoffs, that also of Austin Jordan. But man, it is hard for these drivers on the way that they are just giving nobody an inch really in these corners, especially with how hard they are pinching through the corners.
See now that Joshua Altis has now been able to pull away by a good few car lengths for the rest of the group, and is now reeling in Braxton DeWeese. Stooksbury side by side still with Bronson Stafford right behind. You can see that whole gaggle still trying to work around. Trenton Jump, meanwhile, looking to jump on by some of these machines, chooses the high side to try and get the job done.
Yeah, Jump willing to be aggressive. Jump's been kind of known as the second fiddle most of this season, finishing second a lot to that of Shane Terrian. So this driver really looking to get another win under his belt. Got a win at Kansas earlier, but Smith into the wall again for the 12. He is just struggling to get off of turn number 4.
At that time, it gave him some right front damage, and that's going to affect him aerodynamically. The damage, if you hit your car hard enough with these cup machines to defense, it can cause your car to be tight. We see with the CM Motorsports machine now trying to utilize the bottom, really starting to struggle a little bit. It's a -3 for Smith so far in the race.
Yeah, he's struggling so much, and you're just seeing the fact that he's worn down these tires so much, trying to work that outside lane, that he is just moving up more and more, and with that damage, it's going to tighten it even more to put him into the wall again. The car that's on the move, though, that is Shane Terrian. Started off this run back in 11th. He's already up to 5th place.
Trying to make a move on Trenton Jump on the bottom of the racetrack. Couldn't do so in 3 and 4. Trying to do so in 1 and 2. It's already been up a +9 so far, and he right now is running lap times in the same ballpark as race leader Tom Bourne. As well, Braxton DeWeese has fallen into the clutches of this entire pack. That's already more than 3 to nearly 4 seconds behind your leader. Terrian thinking about going 3 wide, keeps it 2 wide.
Yeah, just going to be following suit behind that of Braxton DeWeese, and this is the issue that DeWeese has been having for most of the season. His tire conservation has been very poor this season. He seems to just fall off a cliff after the first about 15 laps at almost every track where you have to worry about tires. Smith moves up, almost taking out Bronson Stafford and Atlee Gray behind these guys, and oh man, that 12, if he is not careful, he could become a battering ram and take out a lot of people. 3 wide action, though, for the battle for 3rd.
3 wide as DeWeese shuffle to the bottom, and up on the top, Trenton Jump able to get up to 3rd spot. What a move by Jump.
Jump is just finding that 3rd lane and feeling so much more comfortable. Now it's going to be Shane Terrian dropping it low, trying to force it 3 wide, trying to move up to 4th place, and it's just DeWeese from the pole, now back to 6th and continues to drop back.
That high 5 racing machine, you're now on board with the 19 machine of Stooksbury. Now going to be passed by Shane Terrian, able to make the move from the bottom of the racetrack. Up 11 now is the 38. What an impressive drive by him. A lot of talent behind the wheel of that machine. The fall off, by the way, has already reached up to 0.7 of a second for the field. And this is all while Tom Bourne has pulled away to a massive, massive lead in the 54.
Yeah, he's just continuously pulling away, not really giving anyone a care. Up to 3.2 seconds and more. And the driver behind him, that's going to be Joshua Altus. And for Altus, the last time we saw him look this good was back at Texas, where he won that race, was up front. And once we started to see the fact of tire strategies and also fuel strategy kicking in, Joshua Altus was able to have the better strategy over Tom Bourne during that race. This looks almost like deja vu of how Texas was running for these drivers, and now the battle for 3rd place is underway.
Just up the road from where DeWeese was able to make a move to get back 5th position. You see that right there. Shane Terrian just up the road with the side-by-side. There is Altus, and there's that battle. Jump preferring that outside line. And the thing when it comes to using the outside, we talked about the bottom being good to save tires. It's tough to pass, yes, down there, but if you run that high line in 3 and 4, it does heat up that right front tire.
Yeah, the more heat you build up, the looser it can get at times. Also, the more wear you're putting into those tires. It's going to be brutal the longer and longer we go on. As we're coming up to the start of lap 25, I mean, this stint has been looking a lot cleaner than the last one we had that only lasted for a few laps. But so far, everyone's starting to spread out just a little bit more up front. Still that battle for 3rd place, the closest one of those that are in the top 10. Then back around 8th or 9th, you got a gaggle of cars that are just right on top of one another.
Yeah, Tom Bourne, by the way, is currently setting lap times almost a full 1/10 of a second quicker than anyone in the field. And talked about it a little bit, he has been dominant so far in that 54, looking smooth, looking consistent. The question is going to be, how will the tires fare out at the end of this run with how much he's been able to push on forward over the course of these 20-plus laps?
Yeah, I mean, the tires are going to be one of the biggest things. As I'm concerned for Tom. This is about the fourth time this season where we've seen the 54 look this dominant. First, it was at Charlotte, then it was at Richmond, then for Texas, Tom also looked so dominant where he was leading about 3/4 of the race. But at the end of the day, he had a penalty that would come in or a fuel strategy run that just didn't work out. So today, maybe the fourth time, it will be his time to finally get a win this season.
Still very early on in the run, keep in mind. And by the way, the fuel top off from the 38, currently the highest of the drivers who pit. Robert Kenny, who also topped off, is all the way still in 9th position in a gaggle of cars that have caught up to Caleb Smith, who continues to try and defend at the moment. Smith right now turning lap times off to a 10th off the pace of the race leader, and now losing the bottom.
Yeah, Smith's kind of been the car that's been clogging everyone up, not allowing anyone to really move forward.
Having to get off the gas is Smith there as they keep it clean to the corner. Smith a little bit loose that time on the exit. Tanner Johnson, the next driver, looking to try to attack. Only a +1 for Johnson so far, matching the lines evenly. Keenan Massey also now within range along with Gray of these cars as here comes the run for Johnson.
Just expecting everyone to really be able to pass the 12 here. But because we've been out here on this stint, Smith extremely loose out of 4, able to hold on.
Almost looking like he's getting so tight, he's getting loose possibly.
He's just turning so much to stay off the wall that he then has to open.
Panel damage with the Cup car on the iRacing platform. You get loose, and guess what? His quarter panel completely crunched in behind that tire. So we're seeing the ramifications now of the damage from the 12 from earlier.
Just stuck on the high side. Tanner Johnson still not able to make the pass just yet. Now Keenan Massey's going to be low. Atlee Gray, he's bunched in here. And when you have a driver that is this wrecking loose, you don't want a bunch of machines around him. Got to give him plenty of space. Looks like Tanner Johnson also might be getting a little bit loose in the 23.
Trying to utilize the middle line this time along with Gray as they try and diamond the corner. Logan braking.
Happen, and as they're racing hard up front, that of Joshua Altus has been ran down by Trenton Jump, Shane Tarian, and Braxton DeWeese. This pack is battling for second place. It is grown, and they are all moving quick.
They're all 4 seconds back here, race leader, but they are scrapping hard right now in this group. Tarian has been trying to clear by Jump for several laps on the bottom of the racetrack. Has just not been able to get fully side by side since the initial few times a little while ago.
Drivers have now kind of hit the halfway of this stint for those that are going to turn this race into a 2-stopper. So for a lot of them, it's going to be how well have you been conserving your tires and getting ready to really abuse them for this final stint to try to gain as much time. Shane Tarian looking like he's going to be trying to make a pass on Trenton Jump, and we've seen them duke back and forth. This 38, I mean, he's trying something new today. He's done it only a handful of times with racing with the wheel, and you know, when you're trying something that's out of your comfort zone, it can really change up, and it sometimes takes a whole race until you're finally comfortable racing with something new. Oh, he's not on the wheel today. Oh, he's just switching things up.
And you know something? I've raced against him a few times personally. I never realized he wasn't on a wheel in the first place because he is lightning quick on the short tracks usually.
Yeah, usually whenever we hear from the drivers saying, you know, don't like the setup, it just doesn't feel comfortable, that's when Shane Tarian kicks everyone's butt, just because he's just able to react so much quicker with controller because he can flick it back and forth, while everyone else with a wheel, they have to crank their arms and they get tired doing that over and over again. You know, the little minute details of short track racing, sometimes it helps having a controller.
Absolutely. Keep in mind, there have been people like AJ Henderson, the controller king, that have succeeded with controllers as well across the iRacing platform. Tarian now joins that list. Now, with 160 to go this upcoming time by, though, the lead is starting to evaporate a little bit. Bourne's advantage is starting to
be so off from everyone else where they're backing off their speed, trying to save time. And for Bourne, he's just on a go mode. His next driver he could possibly get up to would be that of Matt Dyer, who's just clawing and scratching his way, trying to gain as many positions as possible in the 88. But really for Bourne, he is trying his best. But yeah, he's lost about 5/10 in the last 3 or 4 laps. That second pack with how many drivers are stacked on top of one another, when they start to race side by side, I'm expecting Bourne to gain all that time back.
Yeah, this is going to be intriguing how this all plays out. We are approaching pit windows coming up fairly soon as well. How do you feel the strategy will break down, especially with the 80% fuel limit?
Yeah, I'm expecting who pitted during that first caution and topped off, expect them to try to aim for 75 to lap 80 for when they'll make their first green flag pit stop. But fuel is, I think that's going to be the biggest issue for these drivers over tires.
Even with the amount of fall off, that's going to be interesting how this plays out. As now, hearing that Terrian is going to let on by Braxton DeWeese, as the 38 starting about 15 laps before.
Yeah, a little bit of a respect. Hey, you're going faster. You're going to just use up all your rubber. Just go for it. Go as fast as you want. I'm going to let you go on by. As we say that, though, Jump gets squeezed into the outside wall, scrapes it just slightly. Now the 46 got to be aware of that little bit of damage and hope that it doesn't affect him too much here. Need to fall off with that of Bronson Stafford and would have been a second away from this group. Right now, just lingering and waiting to see what will Shane Terrian do. But it looks like Terrian, he could have.
Jump not looking to make things easy. This pack, by the way, has been able to pull away from the next grouping of cars. Bronson Stafford has now lost this pack after his rear end damage from an issue. Get fairly loose on some of the corner exits. Seen him get very squirrely last time by down the front stretch.
Yeah, and he's been losing about a tenth the last even 2 to Massey. This is the battle for 11th place. As these are the drivers that have been wrecking loose, and Tanner Johnson and Caleb Smith, you don't want to be that close, especially sliding in front of someone else's nose. That could have been bringing out another caution.
Yeah, I haven't seen that close of a slide job before. You have to wonder if he just pushed up the racetrack, possibly. As now, gives spot back to Smith as a result there. Bronson Stafford has elected to come down and pit at lap 51 this time.
This is an interesting call because this is kind of a setup for a 3 of going for a 2-stop strategy. Eric Stamp now into the pit.
Remember, he's been dealing with damage since that early wreck in this race with the front nose damage. About slower than Braxton DeWeese.
DeWeese is coming with a head of steam, though. He was really looking quick, got the pole, was running decently fast, but after Tom Bourne passed him, he just decided to wait up, fall back to 6th place, and ever since then...
It's also approaching. As you see now, the advantage of fresh tires coming through. You'll see from the bottom side, Eric Stamp showing a good example. A lot more ability to be able to send it into the corners and rotate the bottom, and into the pit stops goes Tom Bourne.
So fast that he's actually burning off more fuel than drivers around him, which is forcing him to come into pit road.
Yeah, that's one of the tough balances when it comes to having an 80% fuel limit too, is you have to play to the challenges of that. More drivers ducking their way into the pit lane now. That is Kenny. So more drivers thinking about strategy here about the tires. We'll see how powerful the undercut becomes. That gives Braxton DeWeese the lead and moves now to jump to 2nd spot. Turning in 3rd is still trying to make the move. Altis has been now dropping back in this grouping with the tires going off.
Yeah, with the tires falling off, it's been interesting to see those that have decided to kind of wait to pounce on, drivers' misfortunes of being a little bit too aggressive early in these stints. And that for Joshua Altis, I mean, he has really shown that he's got great pace for those first 40 laps or so on these tires. Then it starts to fall off just slightly. So this is a call for him that if he could save a set, and with 40 laps to go, if a late caution comes out, he is poised to have a great run for himself. As now it looks like Atlee Gray of the 96 coming into the pits, and Caleb Smith following suit.
Drivers from the mid-pack electing to come on down. As now that brings them to the lap 60 to 120, and then towards the end strategy possibly, if not pushing the next window a little bit further. We'll see how far Deweese and company now go on their fuel stints now as they come to the end of lap 61 this time by. And Deweese has actually moved up to the top line after utilizing the bottom for much of the run.
Yeah, gotta do these little switch ups sometimes where you're gotta figure out underneath him, and it's just him taking off. And Deweese, glad that Dyer kind of just relinquished that and did not pressure to try to keep himself staying under 8 laps down.
They're trying to dodge, and now one car into the wall. That's Altus now into the fence with some damage to the right front.
And this is rough because he was coming so close to when he was thinking about pitting here, probably within 6 laps. And that is a rough state because you're running so close to when you're going to get fresh rubber where you don't have to worry about getting into the wall so much. And that is a tall order for himself. But this battle behind, you got drivers with fresh rubber really flying through the field. And
the laps so far tonight, 7 top 10s on his season, 3 top 5s, and now has to be patient since it's too wide. Not going to take it 3 with Bronson Stafford looking to also cut his way on through. Stafford is on 5-lap fresher tires.
Yeah, Stafford has the fresh,
older tires.
Yeah, he has the older tires. He undercut, trying to get in front of Bourne. It's worked out on making that.
And that's where at Iowa the trend usually comes into play. Long green flag runs can happen.
Smith spun. There was a ton of smoke that popped up, and when with the new iRacing smoke that they have.
How effective was the tire saving from Deweese? How about 4 seconds ahead of the rest of the pack? He still has to let by some drivers, but he has been smooth sailing since acquiring the race lead after the pit stop by Bourne.
Yeah, and lap traffic has been very nice to Deweese. They have been just getting out of the way for the 15, and it's all the drivers from second on back that have been having issues. They catch lap traffic at a poor time that's costing them, a couple of tenths here or there. But Deweese overall, he has just been smooth and keeping himself going forward as Tom Bourne trying to unlap himself currently, and that would be massive for the 54 if he's able to unlap. Yeah, for these drivers that are stretching it as far as they can go, with that caution that came out and those that were able to save some fuel during pacing, this is why they're able to go a little bit further than lap 70, aiming for probably 75 to 80 for Deweese, Tarian, and Jump. But Stooksbury, he'll now be pulling it into the pits in that tight end loose off machine. And Caleb Smith, after some of those woes, he has decided to park it for the 12.
Jump has done a very impressive job in defending the 38 this entire run. You can tell that.
And then once that first caution came out, he had to drop all the way back to 11th, and he's marched his way up to 2nd at his highest mark. But, with all that passing that he's had to do, that also was putting wear and tear on those tires, and that could also be a factor on why he's not able to.
See, don't forget that Tyrrell ended up topping off on fuel under one of the caution flag periods. Logan Brake, he had to come down for repairs before in his gain 10.
Going to be trying to beat him.
Side by side, and one car into the big.
And Jump, that could have been disastrous for drivers that were running in the top 5.
That tight and loose off machine is now no longer with a hood. As a result of that hit to the barrels, moves down the pylon. A rough sequence for him.
It was. You never know if, it could be a little bit of a hiccup, and later on in the race, your temps just start climbing because of that hit that you took. As now our leader, he's coming in the pits. Braxton Deweese in.
Quickest now.
Yeah, he is going to be absolutely flying out there. Logan Brakey just taking the lead now, still has not pitted, so he's decided to stay out, get a lap led, get some bonus points for this 29 team. The difference of if you're making it to the next round by getting these bonus points.
See, when he comes in, he's right now, remember, on a set of tires. Came in for fuel previously, so he can stretch it about another few more laps. and right now would pin Tanner Johnson a lap down, and Alex Walter 2 laps down in this sequence if it was to hold. For now, Alex Walter, though, ready to move back to 1 lap down, will catch up to him. Right in the thick of things.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think Deweese, even with Jump and Shantarian pitting 4 laps sooner than Deweese, he still came out of
For a majority of the competitors here on LSRTV, more coverage of the round of 12 for the Adrenaline iRacing Cup Series continues right after this.
ETE Reman is the world's best remanufacturer of trains like new, only better. Instill confidence and install ETE Reman.
Every customer, every single time, needs to get our very best. From moment one, my goal, managing a team here in the dealership.
Welcome back to LSRTV's coverage of the Adrenaline iRacing Cup Series, and what's been a long green flag run so far for competitors. Just 1 caution flag. Tom Bourne is your race leader by 3.6 seconds over Bronson Stafford. Then it's 11.5 seconds back to the freshest tires in the field, Braxton Deweese, followed by Jump and Tiernan so far in this race. I'm Justin Prince. Alongside me is Samuel Dyer with Charles Wooden in the director's seat. What are your thoughts on how this race is played?
some here today to Iowa, and those tracks pretty similar to one another, but we only had 1 caution, and that was in the first handful of laps where Matt Zeyer and Alex Walter, as well as Logan Brakey, had made some contact with Eric Stamp involved as well. So we've seen a run and excited.
Inside, Stokesbury tries to get around Altis, as Altis with the squeeze that time. He squeezed a couple times all the way down below that seam in the corners.
Yeah, just trying to force the 19 back off. I hold my stance, and that could be sending the 5 around.
Now trying to change up his stance, in fact, is Tyler.
A little bit stronger, so keeping their momentum as much as they can possibly, and able to get on the throttle a little bit sooner than the guys on the low side. But the guys on the low side, they're able to just get up and really try to loosen, lose more time, just because, right, momentum and where to place your car to make these passes.
Speaking of side-by-side, this has been going on for a while. Shane Tiernan has been trying to get by Trenton Jump for a while and finally does. Clears on by off of turn 4. Jump now trying to attack.
And caught up to the lead pack around lap 20. These two have just not been able to get away with from one another. The guy away from me. But I mean, I know for some of these guys, it helps them stay focused and able to hit their lines and try to stay competitive with the drivers around them. And sometimes it's helpful to have another driver to keep your pace with, so you're not overcooking your tires too much. But if you're both very competitive people, you can find yourself backfiring and hurting each other and not catching up front, which seems like this is what these guys have been doing.
By the way, Braxton Deweese has reeled in Bronson Stafford and passed him for second position on the fresher tires just up the road from these machines. So now he is closed in to a gap of only 4 seconds in the span.
Willing to really push it as far as he needs, at least get up to around lap 131 is where we're going to be seeing Deweese really trying to push for his fuel stop. He could be trying to go maybe a little bit shorter than that, go to around lap 125-ish. But we can really see Deweese pushed as far as he wants. For Tom Bourne, though, he came in around the drivers around lap 60, so his marker, this just seems so early for the 61 to come in.
Remember, he's on the 3 stop, and this is going to be trying something different. He overran his pit box, and it's going to be an interesting strategy. He might be trying to play on the fact that he's hoping the tire wear is going to factor in bigger than it would be for the fuel.
Yeah, I mean, he's now going to have it's about 20 lap advantage over Braxton Deweese, 46 laps advantage over Tom Bourne. And Tom Bourne, he's now into the pits.
Oh, this is going to be interesting now. This is outside the window, keep in mind, to make it on a 2-stop. So
Original pit stop was going to be by 20 laps. So when they pit again, it's going to be about 30 to 40 laps to go.
definitely looking like things are synced up with them and Robert Kenny, by the way. So
Themselves a lap down. And so if a caution comes out, they're going to have to take a win halfway through the season. And now they're all solo, but they're still friends. And sometimes they throw out the same strategies.
So now it's Braxton DeWeese in the lead. Then you have the battle between Tiernan and Jump. Then you have this battle on the track where usually drivers can lose some time. It looks like Stooksbury feels very comfortable, though, around the very edge of where the marbles would be.
Yep, and now they've got a very fast Tom Bourne, fresh rubber.
Tom Bourne able to jump up in front of Stafford on the strategy call, by the way. Only a couple lap difference. And have to say, an interesting paint scheme for Bronson Stafford. I really like that back bumper on that 61 with the emoji-like ghosts on that machine. But the focus now goes to 4th position battle. That orange machine able to hold on for now. Altus in the
throughout this battling. They've been out there for both of them for 38 laps for that of Stooksbury, 39 for Altus. So very similar strategies for both these drivers.
As you see a loose moment for the 5 machine, as check that, Gray has gone in and checked himself into the pit lane. 51 laps that stint. Just outside the mark to make it on fuel, though, by about 9 laps
it's one of those calls of, I think, for Gray, where he kind of got himself stuck in between the 3-stop guys, and also those are going to aim for their 2-stop. So it's kind of a lose-lose situation for Atlee Gray here. This strategy usually
5 cars are on the lead lap. Altus, Stooksbury, Jump, Tiernan, DeWeese at the moment. Have to say, for your race leader, whenever Braxton DeWeese is on the racetrack, he has a very big fan club of supporters. In whatever series he runs, they always come out in droves to cheer on Braxton.
Yeah, Braxton's family is probably one of the most supportive families you could ask for to get into racing. His family is defending him, cheering him on, and they will do anything to make sure that Braxton's got the best cheering crew in all of iRacing. I mean, it's amazing to see wherever he goes, that fan base, like he stated, that it's just always there. And I know his family, they're always excited to race and watch Braxton race and be successful, and they're hoping and cheering that he can finally break in and get his first win of the season here in the Adrenaline iRacing series, because it's been a long season of not seeing the 15 in victory lane.
Absolutely. Couple drivers now all the way up into the outside wall just about. And riding all the way up to the fence, it's Eric Stamp that's been able to recover to the 10th position and now into a position battle with Tanner Johnson. Keep in mind, though, he is on older tires, so it's going to be difficult to keep up with Johnson here.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult for him to keep up, but the biggest thing is for Eric Stamp and for Johnson is that both of the for Johnson, he's been having a very loose day for himself. And he's been having a lot of just tire wear issues of trying to keep rubber under him. For Stamp, though, he's got a slight engine issues. That's what's been bogging him down, but it seems to equal out to where even with older tires, Stamp's doing a great job. But Altus, he's got to be frustrated not able to make the pass just yet on these guys.
Absolutely. Altus able to clear on by finally. Lost a lot of time, though. At least 4/10 last time by to Stooksbury for the battle for 4th position, and separates them back out.
I mean, this is one of the more frustrating things, is when you get trapped with lap traffic and you're not able to make the pass as clean as you saw the driver in front of you. It kind of makes you frustrated because you're watching the guys that you thought were going to give you a lot of space to work with because they're lap cars. They're just not. As Keenan Massey's going to go extremely wide to give space to the 19. Wondering if the 4 is going to do the same once the 5 catches up to him.
Still give Massey credit. After crashing to the barrels, his car has been running okay, but it's been running 26-second lap times, we'll say. He's done an okay job of keeping it out of the wall and out of the way of some of these competitors after his mistake into the pit lane.
Yeah, it is. It's not been good for that of Keenan Massey. He came over the radio, thought there was no damage, and you can obviously tell it is not running well, and he's just going to stay all the way in that third lane, letting everyone pass, but doesn't want to give out any positions away. As if Keenan Massey just drops out of the race, that's giving one position to Matt Dyer, I talked to almost all of our top 12 playoff drivers last week, just asking their thoughts about how they felt about the playoffs. And for a lot of the guys, it was hope that they could run well and possibly get the win to get in to the round of 8 at Talladega next week. That is going to be one of the tracks that a lot of these drivers had circled up to have a good day, but that also could be a day ruiner for a lot of drivers that are already in the top 8. And if they get caught up in something, it could be knocking them out of the playoffs.
And one of the decisions I'm still curious on how will play out is Tom Bourne's situation. He is now back on the lead lap in 6th position, Sam, but again, this is going to be where he's going to have to unlap himself and then get a full way around the racetrack for the final stint.
Yeah, and even if he catches up to Braxton Deweese during this stint before Deweese pits, Bourne still has to worry about the fact that he's going to have to pit and be on older tires for about 20 laps. So that's time that Deweese is going to gain. So it's going to be a tug-of-war match from here on out between those two drivers. But this is looking and feeling eerily similar to the way that we've seen Bourne throw away a lot of races where he looked like the favorite. And it's looking like it could be another poor strategy call that could be throwing this race away. But you never know. With 40, if the strategy works out with 40 laps to go, Bourne certainly looks poised to try to get close enough to catch up. He's done a great job so far, still about 21 and a half seconds back from our leader, but it's so much ground to catch up. I mean, when you make an extra pit stop, that's over 40 seconds or more that you have to gain back on race time, and sometimes you just don't have enough time on track to gain all that time back. 128 laps, been green for most of it. I mean, sometimes a lack of focus is a factor for these drivers.
A cliff looks like it is plowing tight with the damage.
Yeah, it's partly because he's picking and choosing to stay high and thinking that that's just, he's trying to stay out of the way of everyone else by staying so high, but it's also been a danger because he's just
to reach these drivers to not the time you want to see drivers tapping into the wall, as Johnson will let him on by on the inside, on the outside rather of him. To the outside goes Massey this time.
Go. I mean, this is, if he's going to be just running that outside lane, I don't know how long that wall is going to hold up if he keeps on hitting it.
Yes, indeed. And when talking about this racetrack, of course, this facility has hosted many great very Altus. Your thoughts on how this could all play out now as we are inside the green light?
And it's one of those things where Deweese, as long as he stays focused and keeps running this race with pushing it as far as he did, trying to make sure he had the best tires, this strategy has certainly worked out. As now into the pits, it's going to be Joshua Altus, but for Shane Terrian, he put himself into a hole.
Shane Terrian is. But the problem has been he didn't have the track position, spent a long time battling to try and claw his way through the pack, and it took him a while to get by Trent and jump. And now...
Yeah, I mean, the drivers certainly, they're trying different things out. But, man, this is just one of those things, Justin, where this has just been a great call by Deweese and everything that he has been doing for this 15. And continuing on with a great run. I mean, this was his best opportunity to get this for a lot of them. And I think that would be for sure for Tom Bourne to be back on the same strategy. And I think if we have a caution now, Bourne could come through and pass everyone to win this race. But with a 3-stop, he still needs to come in. I mean, everyone still needs to pit at least one.
Has also cleanly made it to the pit lane this time after significant damage was added to his right side during that run. Yes, now he looks for his pit bomb.
Consistently about 5 to 10 laps down, and Keenan Massey has parked it. So that's going to be gifting.
60, 60, and then 60 to close things out, give or take on the math.
Yeah, I think it was around 65.
Yes, 65 the first one.
Cut the driver that's ahead of you because, well, that's ahead of you and has been faster than you, because once they get fresher rubber, they're going to be able to catch you.
Just about the entire day today when things have cycled through. Not showing indication he's thinking about coming in. If anything, he's showing indication he wants to push on harder.
Yeah, I think Deweese is, even with 24 lap older tires, very similar to the way Texas went, where he was the most dominant car for the first half of the race, but really it was fuel strategy and just a strategy call in general that cost the 54.
And Stafford round up the top 5. Braxton Deweese has to do exactly that, where he's backed it down and been able to save his tires enough to where he's able to back it on down.
And send it for these first 5 to 10 laps, and then they've got to figure out how to hold on for the next 50. It's high. Stewksbury just got service done about 2 laps ago.
Laps plus. So we'll see how things fare out for Deweese now with 50 laps to go.
He's going to have fit of catching up to the guys that are going to be in front of him, and then having the lead and pulling away and having a great.
He's coming in additional time, so he's decided to split it up.
Running in 6th place. So everyone is done. Primarily their final stop. We're still in, but maybe a top 5 to top 10 finish.
And you see the length of the stint has now reached 51 laps for Bourne. Bronson Stafford, who's on a similar stretch. Give it to Tiernan for right now. The gap between him and Trenton Jump, about 5 seconds. Him and Braxton
Gate, who you've been battling all race long, is going to take some time. The gap actually right now, 7 point
way. You're watching LSRTV for coverage of the AIL.
They've ever had. We expect and demand total transparency. There should never be a time. They've done a great job in really creating a full scope product line that could suit everybody's needs.
Braxton Deweese, Justin Prince, Samuel Dyer.
Trying 2 stops. Shane Tarian, I'm under Green Flag Racing, has only done 5 seconds, almost less than 4 seconds away from Shane Tarian.
Braxton Deweese trying to jump, currently running.
He can possibly move forward, but yeah, no, for jump, it's looking Tarian. Just he's been doing whatever he needs to do. If he somehow wins this race, it'll be his 7th win of the season all year long, and I'm not surprised that they are really hitting their.
Is right there at this moment.
And due to the fact that they were so close to one another, it was hard.
That Braxton Deweese looking for the first, is trying to lap by the
Altus, he's trying to stay on the lead lap as well as, being a block.
Ready to pounce here. Tiernan moves to the high side this time. Bourne wheels it down.
Leader being mixy with lap traffic at
fresher tires. Finally does in the corner. Now it's Deweese on the 10-lap fresher tires ready to go. This in particular now side by side for the lead. Squeeze.
At high through 3 and 4 was kind of that Shane Tarian's last hope, getting the momentum, and now to the inside, still pressuring the 15.
One more.
Deweese trying to get by his teammate of Altus, and Altus is probably going to do exactly what he's been doing all race for the past
tires, but this is huge amounts of time being lost. Now this is 5 car lengths the difference.
Irritate someone and force them to make their mistakes.
54, and he's actually going to lose his lap as a result.
Yeah, he's just been around trying to hound and pressure Deweese to use up his tires here.
Tom Bourne now moves to the bottom. Still
the corner, Bourne is just hounding, and now he's going to be pushing Deweese.
But the tough part is older tires, not going to make
too tall of a mountain to climb for that of Shane Tarian, as he'll just be lingering in second, and he's just going to watch Deweese pull.
Plus laps. And now they started to push on forward and is on the proper strategy, looking to get a high 5 from his crew.
Long, and as a whole, Braxton later on into the playoffs, but this win, how massive it would be going into Talladega next week.
The cutoff. Logan Brake, you remember, have that 4-point advantage entering.
Keep it by 1 point, because we got to remember Brakey was able to stay out for a guy, and Tom Bourne gonna have to do the same of trying to make the pass on the outside.
From our front runners. And don't forget Tom Bourne.
Yeah, still 1 lap down. That where you can get a little bit too antsy.
Recovering from the incident he was involved in before. He's on old
good day, and a 12th place running with how small the field
came into tonight as the leader of the Best of the Rest Championship over Tanner Johnson by 2 points. Atlee Gray 4 points back in third. And Caleb Smith 7 points.
Season, and for Gray, he's probably one of the best for the Best of the Rest champ. But gotta watch out for Walter and for Johnson for the Best of the Rest.
Slide, we are down to the final 4 laps.
Green with that DeWeese has circled up that he could possibly get another win.
My final lap from Iowa this time.
As it is your
Was able to keep his tires cool, was able to have a blistering pace, and now
a bad strategy call for himself, and then also seeing Braxton try early on in this long green.
Graduating Braxton DeWeese as well.
He's burning it down. We'll take a look at our final result.
Gray, Brakey, and Kenny round out your top 10. 2 laps separating first to 10th position. We'll be right back. Racing Cup Series here on LSRTV. Justin Prince, Samuel Dyer with laps. He now joins us in the broadcast booth as he gets the chance.
You know, every time I've been in a position to be able to at least a scare because I had that, I had a little bit of a longer run car. The first time Tom pitted, like the first green flag pit stop, I thought pitted there that if it went green, he was going to have trouble making it. So
now what's your approach going to be for that?
Track position is very, very key. It's really single file, so appreciate all the family, friends, and supporters. I want to thank all the sponsors as well. Zimmerman Concrete for being the main sponsor. I want to thank you all for the broadcast. I love going back and watching LSRTV broadcasts no matter what league it is.
Once more in the victory tonight.
Thank you.
Braxton DeWeese, your
start at the back. It's all upside. I probably, I think majority of the time I won this season, he was in second, and he kept jabbing at me for.
You have a part of Team Luminary, but you're now.
I know Bronson's really good at the dragging the me in last season, so going out strong. You guys were broadcasting, and then I just want to let him know everything's gonna be all right.
Through today, especially with that 38.
Turns 1 and 2 on the outsides, but no, I
only did there, Trent, and coming into Michigan and trying to focus on those races after next week.
worked with it, and Talladega's Talladega.
And you want to thank for the run tonight.
Yeah, I want to thank. Yeah, thank.
And your thoughts on how things can play?
A lot of teamwork, a lot more than it was before. Kind of the old package was just, build your momentum up and send it, and you'll have enough of a slingshot move to make passes. But this is a lot more of a build up to your speed. Find drivers that you feel comfortable with that can hold a line, stay smooth, and you can really move fast. I've seen a lot of different strategies being thrown at super speedway races. I think the driver a lot, and then also the CEM Motorsports of Spencer Hardison, Caleb Smith, and Matt Dyer. They might be adding in Bronson Stafford and that of Shane Tarian and maybe some others into that group. So it's going to be a lot of who can find their best friends, work with them, and they're going to be that team that's up front.
On that note, it's time to say goodbye. We'd like to thank you for tuning in for tonight's exciting action from Iowa Speedway. For my producer, Charles Wooden, for Sam Dyer, I'm Justin Prince saying so long. This has been coverage of the Adrenaline iRacing League on LSRTV, your home for sim racing. Congratulations to Braxton DeWeese, your winner from Iowa.